So after completion of introduction of American literature, now we are focusing on the 19th and 20th century English literature, which is produced by the American writers. So one of the most important American writers in the 20th century is T.S. Eliot, and his greatest contribution to the American English literature or to the English literature is the poem The Waste Land. So let us first quickly go to the facts about T.S. Eliot, and then we'll begin the poem, introduction, explanation about the poem. So T.S. Eliot, Thomas Stens Eliot, was an American writer, but he was settled in England, and he published the Waste Land poem, long poem, in 1922, and he belongs to the 20th century. Where did he publish this poem? He published this poem, The Waste Land, in the journal The Criterion, or a periodical Criterion, and this periodical Criterion was started by T.S. Eliot, and he was an editor of Dial periodical. And in the beginning, he had composed this poem, the long poem Waste Land, in 800 lines. How many lines, Goji?
800 lines.
800 lines. So original composition of this poem by T.S. Eliot was 800 lines, but he cut short that poem into 434. There is a controversy whether the poem is actually 434 lines or 433 lines. Let us see, but according to the examination point of view, it is 434 lines, because when I wrote the book, information about this poem, I have written this poem Waste Land is blue penciled. That means they have decreased the size of the poem or length of the poem to 434 lines, or it is also known as boulderized or blue penciled. Now, with whose suggested him to do such thing was, it is Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound was his mentor for writing this poetry. So it was originally written in 800 lines, it was cut short to 434 lines, and it was the influence of Ezra Pound, and the procedure with which the 800 lines poem cut short into 434 lines, it's called boulderized, or it is also known as blue penciled, and lot of allusions are being used in this poem Waste Land. Now, what is the source of this? Is examination point of view information, Goji. They will give you questions from this information. They may not ask you,
yes, sir.
Oh, what is the summary of the poem, or what is the summary of the first part of the poem, second part of the poem, third part of the poem. They will never ask you. They will ask you the questions at the superficial level. So the source for T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land is Mrs. Weston's From Ritual to Romance. So this book is one of the sources for T.S. Eliot to write this poem The Waste Land. And another source of this poem is James Fraser's The Golden Bough. So these two are the books or sources for T.S. Eliot to write this Waste Land. Now, what is the theme of this Waste Land? Understand this theme of the Waste Land, Goji, you will understand the entire poem without anybody's even support also. What is the theme? Expression of the disillusionment of a generation. So yesterday we discussed what is disillusionment. Did you understand, Goji?
Yes, sir. You gave some example also.
So let me again repeat. The 20th century generation, or the people who are living in this 21st century or 20th century, our generation is known as disillusioned generation. What is disillusioned generation? According to T.S. Eliot, is we are morally degraded, sexually degraded, we don't have any kind of fear of God, and we have degraded our lives to the lowest level, because we don't believe in any kind of virtues which were propounded by the Elizabethan people or the Victorian values. So our life is disillusioned generation. To be specific, this entire poem expresses the theme of disillusionment of a generation. When a generation becomes disillusioned, when they don't believe in anything, what do? How do they do? And what is their thought process? And what are their belief system? And how do they act exactly? So when T.S. Eliot observed the people in London and their degraded lifestyle, and their moral degradation, he believed that the entire London is a wasteland and the people who are in the London are known as wastelanders. So these people, they don't believe in anything. They just believe whatever they are doing is right. Now such kind of people are part of this wasteland poem. We are going to read different characters in this poem. So now, a sigh for the vanished glory of the past, death in life, life in death. These are the themes. These are the themes of this poem, The Wasteland. So Goji, let me again explain so that if you understood the theme of the poem, whatever you read, this theme will be in your mind so that you can understand the entire poem. What is the theme of this entire poem, Wasteland, which is divided into 5 parts? It is about the different characters who are disillusioned with the beliefs of the Victorian values, God, heaven, hell, fear, all those things. They were not having any kind of feelings to that. And when they are in a disillusioned, how do they behave, what do they behave is expressed by T.S. Eliot. And especially when he saw the Londoners, when he saw the people in the London, how they were degraded morally, sexually, when they were living the life of a lowest standard, he had written this poem to make them to realize that that is not the right way of living. And there is another 2 or 3 themes of this poem are the sigh for the vanished glory of the past. So he is comparing the people who are in the 20th generation, 20th century to the people who lived lives in the previous generations. And it is also called death in life or life in death. These are the themes of the poem, The Wasteland. And now in this poem, the characters who are in this poem, they are known as wastelanders. London is the world, or London is the place where these wastelanders are living. According to T.S. Eliot, the whole world is a wasteland and we are all wastelanders. Goji, thoda samajh mein aaya? So tell me, where are we all living? In which type of world are we all living?
Sir, we are living in a state actually. Migrants don't have any faith in anything. So that's why the TSC is trying to.
Your voice is breaking.
Can you hear me, sir, right now?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, actually, as I told you that the theme is it is full of disillusionment, and the poet T.S. Eliot is trying to make differentiate between the past and the present situation. I think there is a reference of Canterbury Tales. Such a time the past was quite good, but now the people are quite disillusioned. They do not have any faith in themselves. So that is the basic theme that you discussed.
Right. Okay. Diksha, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Now, who is the protagonist in this poem? The protagonist of the poem The Wasteland is Tiresias. The protagonist of this poem, The Wasteland, is Tiresias. And who is this Tiresias? He is blind, bisexual, hermaphrodite, a prophet. He can see the past, present and future. So who is the narrator of the poem, or who is the protagonist of the poem The Wasteland is? It is Tiresias. He is a bisexual. Okay. And then let us go to the next slide. This poem is divided into 5 parts. Goji, am I audible clearly?
Audible, sir.
This poem, The Wasteland, is divided into 5 parts. The first one is the burial of the dead. The second one is a game of chess. The third one is the fire sermon. And the fourth one is death by water. And the fifth one is what the thunder said. First, you need to memorize these 5 parts. I'll ask you, if you tell me, then only I'll start the explanation of the poem. There are 5 parts of this poem, or the poem is divided into 5 parts. First one is the burial of the dead. Second one is a game of chess. Third one is the fire sermon. And the fourth one is death by water. And fifth one is what the thunder said. Can you remember quickly, Goji and Diksha?
So number 1 is the burial of dead. So if you will show me means once, then I'll just remember. I said only 1 minute I
I'm
need,
showing.
sir.
I'm showing.
And sir, fourth one, fourth and fifth one, sir.
See, Goji,
Yes.
Burial.
the burial of the dead, a game of chess, the fire sermon, and then death by water, what the thunder said.
So may I?
Yes, Diksha.
The burial of dead, the game of chess, the fire sermon, uh, what the no sir, what the thunder said is fifth one. Fourth one, sir,
Death by water.
death under water, death by water,
Death by water. Okay.
death by water, and fifth one is
What?
what the thunder said.
Right. The questions will come from these parts. They will give you five parts of this poem, and they'll ask you which one is rightly organized or arranged. So the poem begins with the burial of the dead. Second part is a game of chess. Third part is the fire sermon. Fourth one is death by water. Fifth one is what the thunder said. Goshi, can you quickly tell me what are the five parts of this poem?
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir. First, you mentioned the burial of the dead, and secondly, you told the game of the chess. Then it was fire sermon. And then it was what the thunder said, and then water by death.
Death by water, and finally what the thunder said.
Death by water. Death by.
Okay, I'll repeat once again. This poem is divided into five parts. The five parts are starts in this way: the burial of the dead, a game of chess, fire sermon, death by water, what the thunder said. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Diksha, Goji,
Sir.
did you
Yes,
recollect?
sir.
Because you have to remember, as I told you,
Yes, sir.
the questions will come at the superficial level only. They will not ask you in-depth questions, superficial questions. So examination point of view, let me first explain, then I'll go to the summary of each and every part of the poem. And it was published in the year 1922, and T.S. Eliot received Nobel Prize in 1948. Goji, when did he receive Nobel Prize?
1948.
1948. And this poem, Wasteland, is written in free verse. How it is written? It is written
Free verse.
in free verse. And
Sir, will you please remind me that free verse,
blank verse.
how to understand? Sir, free verse and black verse, you have taught us to recognize something will be missing in free verse and black verse. So that I'm not able to recollect now. In the first class only you have taught us, sir,
Yes. Okay, I'll explain.
that what would be missing.
Rhyme and meter is there, no? Two things I told you that day.
Yes, sir.
1 second. So what are the five parts here? The burial of the dead, a game of chess, then fire,
The fire sermon,
sermon, and then
death by water,
then
and then the last one is the
thunder
what the thunder said.
said. Right. So these
What
are
the
the
thunder said.
five parts of the poem. The burial of the dead. 1 second. The burial of the dead. D-E-A-D. The burial of the dead. Okay. Now you are asking free verse, correct? Somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Free verse. Free verse is poetry that does not rhyme, have a rhythm. So free verse has rhythm but not rhyme. Blank verse has rhyme but not rhythm.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Right. Now,
But sir, you told earlier about the difference between free verse and blank verse. I think you told in blank verse there is meter and in free verse there is no meter.
okay, we'll discuss later and let us go with the poem flow. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. This poem is known as modern poem. Which poem is known as modern poem?
So the wasteland,
The Wasteland is known as modern poem,
modern
and
poem.
the protagonist or the central character of this poem is Tiresias. He is the protagonist. This character Tiresias is present in Greek mythology. He is bisexual or double sexed, blind, and he is also a saint prophet, and he could see the past, present, and future. Okay, so this is the introduction about the poem, and it is dedicated to Ezra Pound. This poem is dedicated to whom, Goji?
Ezra Pound.
This poem is dedicated to Ezra Pound.
So who was Ezra Pound, sir?
Ezra
The
Pound,
contemporary.
Ezra Pound is the mentor of T.S. Eliot when he went to America.
So Ezra Pound is he or she?
She, wait a minute. Ezra Pound, correct?
Yes, sir.
He or she, let me see. He, Ezra Pound.
He, right? Yes, sir. That confusion we had the last time you discussed, you explained the poem, sir.
Right. Ezra Pound is he. Right. And Tiresias is a signifying character. It consists of 5 parts, and this is also known as modern poem, and it is also known as modern epic. It is also known as modern epic.
Epic.
It is also known as modern poem, and it is also known as modern epic. And the sources for this poem is Mrs. Weston's From Ritual to Romance and James Fraser's The Golden Bow. And it was dedicated to Ezra Pound. It was published in the Criterion periodical in 1922, and the editor of this Criterion periodical was T.S. Eliot. Okay, so this is the introduction of the poem, or the important information about the poem in examination point of view. They will not ask you different questions or in-depth questions about this poem. The poem T.S. Eliot, the poem Wasteland was written by T.S. Eliot, and he is an American writer, and the poem The Wasteland was published in 1922, and this was published in the Criterion periodical, which was started by the T.S. Eliot, an American poet who got settled in England, and he was also an editor of the periodical The Dial. And this poem The Wasteland, initially it was written and composed in 800 lines, but it was cut short by the advice of Ezra Pound, who is the mentor of T.S. Eliot, and it was blue penciled or boulderized, cut short, edited to 434 lines, and there are so many allusions are being used in this poem. And the source of this poem is Mrs. Weston's From Ritual to Romance, one book, and James Fraser's The Golden Bow. And the theme of this poem is expression of the disillusionment of generation. The 20th century generation was disillusioned by the faith of God and all those things. So that was being expressed by the poet in this poem, The Wasteland. And there are few more themes of this poem are a sigh for the vanished glory of the past, and death in life, and life in death. And the characters in this Wasteland are, it's actually representing the London and Londoners, and the characters in this Wasteland are called Wastelanders. And this entire poem is narrated, or the central character, the protagonist of the poem is Tiresias, and then he is a bisexual, hermaphrodite means bisexual, he is a prophet, saint, and he could see the present, past, and future. And this poem is being written in the free verse. The burial of the dead, a game of chess, fire sermon, death by water, what the thunder said, are the 5 parts the poem was divided, and it is considered to be modern poem, and it is also known as modern epic, and it was dedicated to Ezra Pound. This is the examination point of view important information. So it is dedicated to whom, Goji?
Ezra Pound, sir.
Dedicated to Ezra Pound. Now let us, okay, before going into the explanation of the text, do you have any questions with the information which I have provided to you?
No, sir.
So whatever I have given in this single slide, examples or information, is important in examination point of view, because we don't know whether they will ask you the questions from the summary of the poem Wasteland or they will ask you superficial level. 95% the question papers which I have gone through, they will ask questions at the superficial level. Not only you, Ghoshji, everybody knows that Wasteland poem is a complicated poem, not a very difficult poem. It's a complicated poem because we don't understand what we are in our life. We are disillusioned generation. So whatever we are thinking, we don't have the courage to accept, and we try to hide, and we don't try to share our exact feelings with others, thinking that those feelings, if we express, people may misunderstand us. So that is the conflict which comes in our mind. So this poem is not easy to understand if we don't really understand ourselves. If we understand ourselves clearly, this poem is an expression of our own life. It is an expression of the way we are degraded, demoralized, and whatever we are doing in this world or in our life is being showcased in this poem. It is an exact representation of the modern man and modern woman in the society. So this is first important examination point of view. This information which I have displayed in the single slide is important. Then we'll go to the content of this poem, explanation of the poem of each and every stanza. So shall we go into the deepest explanation?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Right. Now let us go to the first stanza. As I told you, this poem is divided into 5 parts. The first one is the burial of the dead. Second one is a game of chess. Third one is fire sermon. Fourth one is death by water. And the fifth one is what the thunder said. Now if we take the first part of the poem, this is the first part of the poem, the burial of the dead. The examination point of view, important sentence is April is the cruelest month. Which poem begins with this line, April is the cruelest month? It is T.S. Eliot's which poem, Diksha?
So,
Wasteland.
cruelest poem. Wasteland. Okay.
April is the cruelest month, breeding lilkas out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering 5 earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnsburgis. With a shower of rain, we stopped in the Kelnot. So the poem begins with in this way. The first part is burial of dead, and the poem begins with April is the cruelest month. Now, what is this cruelest month? All those things we'll understand, try to understand. The first part, the burial of the dead, is the character is a rich German princess. Who is the main character in the first part of the poem, Goji?
A rich German princess.
Mary. Her name is Mary. You can see the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, in this part, a rich German princess Mary, and she is a Westlander. It is about the both men and women, how they were morally degraded, and about their chastity, sexual obsession, all those things are being explained. The burial of the dead of the fertility god. The burial service of the dead performed by the Christian church. Mary, who is a German princess, and then we have one fortune teller in this first part, Madame Sosotis. She used to play the tarot packs. It's a kind of a fortune telling, and in this story she sees the Phoenician sailor, and he was a sailor, Phoenician sailor. Mary is a German, she belongs from German, and she is a Westlander, and for that woman, Mary, who is a Westlander, for her, sex is an ordinary thing. She doesn't find anything offense if she has a multiple sex partners. And then Mary and her cousin, they will have the sex, and Madame Sosotis is the one who is a soothsayer, who is a fortune teller. She used tarot cards, pack of cards, and there becomes a Phoenician sailor also, and then there is one belladonna is there, and then they are living in the unreal city, which is London. Now let me just explain with the help of the information which is presented on the screen. Again I'll repeat. The main character in this part is Mary. She is a German princess. She doesn't have any kind of guilt or remorse or any kind of ill feeling about what she is doing in her life because she is a Westlander. And there is one more character, Madame Sosotis, who is a fortune teller. She tells about the fortune with the help of the tarot cards or pack of cards. And we find a Phoenician sailor who is actually drowned in the water. And the man with 3 staff is a kingfisher is found in the first part. The one-eyed merchant is also found, the hanged man, and the crowds of people. All were living in a place, in an unreal city, that is London. So all these people were living in a place where, according to the poet, is considered to be a wasteland, because they don't have any kind of remorse or guilt for the actions which they are performing or doing in their life. Now, if you understand this first part in the simplest manner, it is about the woman who has degraded from who had fallen or who had degraded herself. Now, why it is very important for a woman to maintain the chastity is it was a Victorian value. Earlier, it was believed that a woman should be good, a woman should be noble, a woman should dedicate her life to a single man. But in this poem, when T.S. Eliot expresses his opinions in the poem, that the woman like Mary, she is not an ordinary woman, she is a German princess. She also had moved out of that kind of mindset, and she was living her life in her according to her wish. Now, what I am trying to explain here is, when all these things were being watched by the poet, and he was upset with the way the life of the woman in this wasteland. The wasteland is unreal city or in London, and the wastelanders are the people, men and women, who are in the London city. Thoda samajh mein aaya, Goji?
Yes sir, can understand sir, the first part.
Right. Next, let us go to the second part. So first part is, he talks about the first part is he talks about the people who are living in such kind of a life in the first part, the burial of the dead. Now here he talks about 2 things. Jesus Christ came, according to his opinion, Jesus Christ came and he saw these people, and when he saw these people, he was very, very unhappy. So because all these were committing sin, these were called sinners. According to the Christian belief, these were called sinners, and they are committing sin without knowing the consequences of their actions. So here he says that the Holy Grail is there, the Last Supper, all those things are there, and he explains about the life cycle. Because of committing these kind of sins, what happens? People are caught in the circle. What is the circle? It is about the birth, life, again will die, and again will rebirth. It is done because we are not following what is being told to us to follow by the Christian faith. People who are not following that and people who are committing these kind of sins, they will be caught in the cycle of life and they will never come out of that cycle. So it is a belief about the wastelanders that they are committing sin. So that is the reason why they will be moving in this circle, life, death, again they will rebirth and they will again do some kind of sins and again they will be caught in this life cycle. So if you don't understand the Western philosophy and if you don't understand the Eastern philosophy, the one which we are living, which we are believing, this poem will become complicated. Now what is the Western philosophy and what is the Eastern? Eastern means ours philosophy is, we believe in the theory of karma. What is karma? Whatever actions we did in the previous birth results in the present birth. That is by all our sufferings, all our problems and miseries are because of the actions which we committed in the previous birth. And if you want to come out of those kind of problems and sorrow and miseries in this birth, we should not commit any kind of sins. But if we commit the sins, again we'll take one more birth and we will face the consequences of the sins which we have committed in this birth. So this is a kind of a circle we were caught. This is believed by the Eastern philosophy. What is Western philosophy? They don't believe, or the modern Westlander, they don't believe in such kind of thing. They just live like animals and they are enjoying their life according to whatever they mean to say. So this is about the wastelanders lifestyle projected in the first part of the poem, the burial of the dead. And what is the city which is considered as unreal city, Goji?
London.
London is an unreal city. And who are the wastelanders?
The people living
In the London.
in London.
In the London city. So when T.S. Eliot watched the people in the London city, he considered this entire land is wasteland. Wasteland in the sense means the people have lost their moral, degradation, and they are not living life according to the Christian belief. Diksha, any questions?
No, sir.
Right. So important characters in this part is Madame Sosortis, and who they will not ask you such questions, but in general I am speaking for your information. So Mary is a German princess. She has physical intimacy or physical contact with her own cousin, which is not considered to be any kind of sin for her. There is no guilt in her mind, but it is considered to be sin according to the T.S. Eliot. And there are so many women, such kind of women, who are not bothered about doing such kind of actions. Next. A game of...
Sir?
Goji.
How is the title significant burial of the dead? The theme that you discussed in the first part.
The wastelanders are also considered to be dead people, walking dead. Goji?
Okay, sir.
When we have lost, listen, I'll explain. When we have lost connection with the God, then we are dead people, walking dead. The burial of the dead. All those people who are living life in this London, they are actually dead people according to the T.S. Eliot, because they are not following any values, they are not following the Christian beliefs, they are living just like animals. So all these people are dead people according to T.S. Eliot.
Right, sir, right.
Right. Next part is a game of chess. In this, what actually the poet discusses, the main theme of this a game of chess is moral degradation and death in life, and it is about the sexual degeneracy in the modern age. And the focus is on the bedroom of a rich lady. And okay, I'll try to explain, not to use any kind of unnecessary information here. The game of chess is a part where the entire theme or entire focus is on the sexual degeneracy in the modern age. How men and women of high class and middle class and poor class people, how do they have fallen into the physical attractions and all those things. And Lady of the Rocks is the character. Lil and her friend are the two characters who are discussing or talking in a bar, waiting for a husband who had been to the war. And then Philomela is a character, and she turned into Nightingale because she was raped by her sister's brother. So the story in this particular part of the game of chess is, it is about the moral degradation, and we discuss here the character of Philomela, and how this Philomela character is being portrayed in this part is, she was raped by her sister's brother, who is the Taurus king. And God, when Philomela cried and begged or prayed to God, the God turned her into Nightingale. So she says, those were pearls that were her eyes, is a figures of speech used by Shakespeare's from Tempest. So these lines are used by T.S. Eliot in this particular part. And what they used to do, they took the hot water bath, and they used to play the game of chess and knock on the door. Preserved kinds of perverse kind of sex and all those things they used to practice. And these are the two women. Soldier's wife is Lil. Who is Lil? She is a soldier's wife who is 31 years of age, and she is discussing or talking to her friend. Her friend name is not given in this poem. And what they were talking is, her husband, Lil's husband went serving in the army, and he left her 4 years ago. So after 4 years, he is now returning. When he is coming back, she is now worried, tensed. The reason is, Lil spent her husband's money on purchasing pills, abortion pills. So she was having so many illicit affairs. So she was having so much of that kind of stuff, multiple partners, all those things, and she doesn't want to her husband to know about her actions. So Lil's purchased so many abortion pills to now to become a pregnant, and she already has 5 husbands, and her husband is coming, and she doesn't want to look old, so she was asking to her friend to make her to look so that she can look attractive to her husband, and her husband will not find any kind of doubt on this Lil's character. So all these things are discussed in the second part, a game of chess. When they were playing chess, it is actually the sexual degeneracy in the modern age, how men and women have came out of that kind of a mindset of having a single partner, and they started having this kind of illicit relationships. So the characters which are important in this a game of chess are Lil and her friend, and then Philomela is a woman who has been raped by her sister's brother Tarasis, who is a king. When she can't do anything to him, she prayed to God, and God turned her into nightingale. So who turned as a nightingale in the game of chess is? It is Philomela. Nobody will ask you a question who raped Philomela in the examination. Any question?
Sir, but this part didn't so clear. Means it wasn't clear to me, sir. That you were saying her sister's brother. That means that person will means would her brother also no? That portion is not clear, sir. Means
Philomela, sister married to this Taris king.
okay, sir.
When Philomela is in the Taris,
Means she was then she was harassed by her brother-in-law.
yes, correct.
Okay, sir.
Philomela's sister got married to Tyrus the king. When Tyrus saw Philomela, he seduced her or he raped her. But even after doing that also, Philomela cannot do anything back because he's a powerful person. So when Philomela prayed to God, God turned her into nightingale. Allusions, lot of examples are being given.
Okay, sir.
Any questions, Goji?
No, sir.
Let me explain once again. This poem talks about the people who are lost or who don't believe in any kind of values which you and I believe. That is why it is very difficult to understand why those people are behaving in such manner. They are living the modern life. In the modern world, they are completely disillusioned or moved away from the Victorian values. When we move out of these Victorian values and when we start living the modern life, all these things are not wrong. It is their life, it is their wish, they can have anything in their life. According to the modern society, the one in which we are living, nothing is wrong if majority approves. गोजी थोड़ा समझ में आया?
हाँ, थोड़ा समझ में आया सर.
Gay marriages, same sex marriages, is it right or wrong?
Actually, as you told, in the modern era, it is actually Western culture. But earlier, in the Victorian era, it was ethically not correct, morally not correct.
Who is the one who can decide what is correct and what is wrong?
The people himself, the person himself.
Majority.
It is individual's choice.
Majority, yes. Not individual. It's majority.
Majority, okay.
If majority of people decides one thing is good, then that will be enforced on others.
Right, sir. Right.
Okay. So now if you feel disgusting about the explanation, or if you feel not happy with the explanation of this poem, it is not the poem is disgusting. It is our mind which is not accepting the reality of this modern world.
Right, sir.
Diksha?
Yes, sir.
So the problem is not with the wasteland. The problem is not with the theme of the poem. The problem is when this poem makes us to see naked, we are not happy to see our original nature. Shall I continue, Goji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, examination point of view, the longest part in the poem, The Wasteland, is the fire sermon. Here, it's again the same thing. It's a love and lust, and there is a typist in this poem. And this typist, after completion of her work, she comes to her home. Her boyfriend comes to her, and they had a physical intimacy, and after that the person left the room. They don't have any kind of emotional connection or emotional bonding or any kind of what you know, soul to soul, such kind of connection. It is just a practical. He came, they had sex, and they just left. And she was not worried about all those things also. She was also not emotionally connected. He was also not emotionally connected. So here, what they do in the third part, the fire sermon, it is the longest part of the poem, and they beautiful women and loitering eyes of the city directors, they have empty bottles, silk handkerchief. They see in the London near that Thames river, they found all these women who are enjoying, who are doing all those things. Now what is this here is, in the Spencer Thames, the river which we are discussing in this fire sermon part is, according to the Spencer's Thames is a river in the London city. According to Spencer Thames, the Thames is a place where the nymphs, angels and good people dwell or move in that place. But according to the T.S. Eliot, according to these people, now who are moving near the Thames river is the vulgar women, the prostitutes, and those people who are having this kind of illicit relationships, they are now moving. So the Thames has seen the people of the previous generation, and now the Thames is witnessing the present morally, sexually degraded people in this part, the fire sermon. So Mrs. Porter and her daughter, who are prostitutes, they are washing their feet with the soda water to attract the clients. Now if you ask why they are doing, because that is their profession and people get attracted to those people. And there are two hotels in this place, Kenman Street Hotel and Metropole Hotel. These are two hotels are famous for harboring homosexuals. Now this is the modern society in which these people are living. Whatever is decided by the majority of the people, that is accepted in the society. And now here we get, as I told you in the earlier part, the Philomela, when she was raped by Tiresias and when she prayed to God, she was converted into a nightingale. But here if you see the typist, she has no remorse, she doesn't have any kind of grief, or she doesn't have any kind of connection to the person with whom she had physical intimacy. And the comparison between Philomela and this typist, we can see that the woman in that poem, in the woman given in the poem, especially the typist, she is quite modern, she is quite practical in nature. There is no body is different and the mind is different. So here the typist had a sexual intimacy with the clerk. It's like kind of a rape to the woman, but she has shown no reaction to that kind of act. Whereas in Philomela's life, she was completely devastated. So this is the third part where you can understand how people have changed and how people have developed in this modern world and how they are living without any kind of a guilt in their mind. Goji.
Sir, the fire sermon, how the title is appropriate, significant to the theme?
What do you call fire sermon means? When you did marriage, they had Agnipath and all those things they did, Goji?
Yes.
So whatever the sins we have committed, that will burn away, correct? And you will be purified, and your soul, not your soul, the marriage will be performed in front of the holy fire, so that whatever that you have committed, previous sins, all those things will be burnt and you will have a blissful life. But here what they are doing? Is it burning their sins? They are enjoying.
No, they are enjoying.
Diksha.
Yes, sir.
Right. And death by water is the shortest part of the poem. The longest part of the poem is the fire sermon. And death by water is the shortest part of the poem. And the Phoenician sailor whom we have found in the first part, the burial of the dead, where he was drawn into the water, now again resurfaces in this particular part, death by water, and this is the shortest part of the poem. And the sailor is from Phoenician sailor, and we came to know the name of the sailor is Phlebas, and the water purifies. So he is a sailor, he knew only two things, profits and loss. Missing, he was drowned, bones collected by the stream, goes into the whirlpool, gentle or Jew. And so he says that there are two people who follows two different kinds of gods. Gentle people follows Jesus and Jews follow Moses. Phoenician and inverted modern currency notes. Phlebas died without repenting before the god. So whatever he committed, he had no remorse, he had no repent, or he has no any kind of guilt in his life. That means people, we are involved, or we are worried about earning money. We are not worried about how we are earning money. So what I am trying to tell you in this death by water is, whatever the purification process should take place according to the Bible or according to the God, nobody is worried about those things. They are living a very, very practical life without any kind of emotions. Goji.
Right, sir. In modern era, it is happening. People are enjoying themselves. They do not bother about others and holy things and anything else. They are enjoying.
Diksha.
Yes, sir.
Right. This poem is not very happy one. I can't say after reading this poem you feel happy or not. You may feel little unhappy or disgusted also after reading this poem, but this is the fact, or these are the facts. How the entire modern society turned is exactly represented in the poem by T.S. Eliot. Now, last one is what the thunder said. When people have become like this, when people have lost the values and all those things, what will happen? This entire world will turn into wasteland. Now, at that time, what the thunder said is, he took the reference of Upanishads. Okay, and he says that Parsifal is one who went to bring that holy grail along with some other people, and when they went to the holy grail to bring the holy grail, these people, there are others, who went to bring that holy grail to purify the sins. They actually raped the nuns who were the custodians or who were safeguarding that holy grail. So the curse has fallen, and the Parsifal, he went and brought the grail by answering all the questions. And then at the end of the poem ends with the Hindu philosophy. What is that final one? It ends with the poem is, he says that Datta, Dayadvam and Dhamyata. The poem ends with Datta, Dayadvata and Dhamyata. So what is this Datta? To give. Dayadvam means to sympathize, and Dhamyata means self-control and discipline. So whoever wants to come out of these kind of sins committed by mistake, knowingly or unknowingly, they have to look back, or they have to go back to the Upanishads, and they should understand that if they want to come out of these sins, they have to follow this threefold path. What is that one? Datta, Dayatvada and Dhamyata. Datta means we have to give, ask to give oneself. We should sacrifice ourselves. And the second one is Dayatvadam. That means we should show sympathy, to sympathize with others' problems. And then Dhamyata means we should have self-control. Otherwise, we cannot reach the place where we have come from. Now, this is the 5 stanzas or 5 parts of the poem about the wasteland. Let me again go through quickly once again. This poem, the wasteland, is divided into 5 parts. First one is the burial of the dead. Second one is the game of chess. Third one is the fire sermon. Fourth one is the death by water. And the fifth one is what the thunder said. And the central character who is explaining, or the protagonist of the poem, is Tiresias. Now let us go to the explanation part. You can read this poem and you can understand. Thomas Stearns Eliot, source of the poem is the epigraph. Is it visible, Goji?
Visible, sir.
The poem starts with an epigraph. So remember, this poem, The Wasteland, starts with an epigraph written in Greek and Latin, that is taken from Stachyon, written by Petronius in the 1st century AC. This strikingly outrageous and marvelous satire parodies the imperial Rome. Chapter 48 of this masterpiece discusses the Greek myth of Sibyl, that is an old prophetess. This mythological character was granted immortality by Apollo but forgot to ask for eternal youth. So that character lives forever. Hence her body withered away till only her voice was left, and she was literally kept in a jar. Eliot compares modern man with this old farseer and says that the modern men are living in the modern wasteland with the fear of life and are haunted by the wish to die. Goji?
Yes, sir.
So we are all living in this modern wasteland with the fear of life. You, I, everybody. Any exceptions may be there, but in general I'm speaking. We are all having fear of life. Instead of living our life, we are living with fear. or fear of life, and we are haunted by the wish to die. It may be difficult to understand, are we really haunted to die or not? No questions here. You can do self introspection, you can understand. If you are not such kind of person, good. This pessimistic bent of mind is reflected throughout the poem. This poem was very lengthy in starting and was given to Ezra Pound for editing. Pound cut down many of the details and shortened the poem, and because of this technical support, Eliot dedicated this poem to him by writing Il Milgero Fabro for him, that means a better craftsman. So it begins with an epigram. Next, if you see the burial of the dead, line 1 to line 76, the very first part of the poem is about the Egyptian ritual in which they believe in the death for the purpose of rebirth or having a new start. Goji, you asked me a question, correct? What is the connection? Why this burial of the dead being titled? Correct?
Right, sir.
So
Right,
it is an Egyptian ritual in which they believe in the death for the purpose of rebirth or having a new start. So in the Egyptian culture, or even in Indian mythology, Indian philosophy also, it is told to us that when we die, our body only we have lost, but the soul remains permanent, eternal, and whatever the good things, good actions, bad actions, sin, all those things will be attached to our soul. And if we are not purified by our actions, if there is no purification happens, then again we have to take a new form or a new birth. New birth. New birth, and again we have to suffer in this world. For some critics, it is the representation of Christian ritual of the funeral of death. This part starts with a reference to Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales. The prologue starts with the line, April is the cruelest month. So this line, April is the cruelest month, is also the beginning line or the sentence from the prologue to the Canterbury Tales written by Chaucer. And Eliot also started this poem with the same line in a contradictory meaning. He uses this reference to portray the dejection and depression of the age, as in the distracted and barren surroundings, this messenger of spring brings more gloom and despair. Moreover, Eliot uses verses from Richard Wagner's opera Tristan and Isolde to mourn over the destructive and sorrowful conditions of the city of London. Another very important allusion is from Aldous Huxley's novels Chrome Yellow, that is of the fortune teller named Madame Sosotis. Eliot's Madame Sosotis tells the fortune of the modern man and foresees him dying by water. This old wise lady reads tarot cards to tell the fortune of the man about drowning in the water, Phoenician sailor. Here, Eliot uses Shakespeare's lines of the Tempest, those are the pearls that were his eyes for the drowned dead. But the Phoenician sailor who was drowned will emerge alive in the fourth part. Next, we have the game of the chess. The title of this part is from the Middleton's The Game of Chess, and the main plot for this part of the poem is taken from Women Beware Women of the same writer. Its main plot is about the seduction of a young wife by a gallant whose mother-in-law is enjoying the game of chess. To explain the chairs she sat in, Eliot uses the reference from Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra and elaborates his grandeurs marvelously. So you please read this part, you can easily understand. And then fire sermon also here, it's like maybe it is very small for you. I'll just enlarge. Wait a minute. The fire sermon. Okay. The title of this part of the poem is taken from Lord Buddha's fire sermon that describes the burning humanity in the fire of hate and lust. This is the most lengthy and complex section of this poem that depicts Eliot's uses of cinematic technique very well. Here, Eliot takes the modern man beside River Thames, pondering upon the condition of the society. He takes the phrase sweet Thames from Edmund Spenser's Protalmium and highlights the pollution in it to symbolize the degeneration of modern civilization. That is about the third part. Then we come to the fourth part, Death by Water. Title of this part is a kind of fulfillment of Madame Sosotis' forecast of the death of the modern man by water. Water, being a source and symbol of life, rebirth, rejuvenation and purification, has become the source of death for the inhabitants of wasteland. This is the shortest part of the poem where Eliot has concluded all his pessimistic themes mentioned in the previous three sections. This part starts with the Phlebas, who is dead sailor, died by drowning in the water according to the forecast of the Madame Sosotis. Then we come to the last part, what the thunder said. This is the only part of the poem that depicts optimism and provides the modern man guidance for his rescue from the pessimistic, degenerated cultural condition. So in this part, we'll come to know how can a modern man can come out of this kind of degraded cultural condition. How can he come out of the sins committed? Here Eliot has taken the narrator of the poem out of the destructed city and has brought him on a mountains where thunder is saying something to him. That means the thunder, God has spoken in form of thunder to this man. The title of this section is a symbol of hope and rebirth by providing the guidance for deliverance. After depicting a hopeful and peaceful scenario, Eliot refers to Dante's Inferno, where he writes, I have heard the key, to assure the guiding message. Here he uses allusive words, revive for a moment broken Clarinus from Shakespeare's play Carolinus. From Wagner's same opera, he uses the phrase the boat responded. Then Eliot refers to Hieronymus, the leading character of Thomas Kit's The Spanish Cried. So many allusions, references are taken. In the end part of the poem, Sanskrit allusions are referred to in the form of words. Datta means to give, Davyadvam means sympathize, and Dhamyata means to control, which are taken from an Indian myth. Moreover, the very last verse of the poem is Shanti, 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 which are Sanskrit words meaning peace. So how could people in this modern world can attain peace and salvation? Remember the last word, salvation, with this threefold. What are the threefold? We have to practice datta, to give our life for the good cause, noble causes, and we should develop the sympathization, daidvam, and we should have a self-control, that is called damyata. How the poem concludes. Thus, the spiritual hollowness and bareness of modern man is exhibited in this poem as its main theme. People have lost spirituality in their lives. That is the reason why people have become such an animals in this world. That is the main problem here. This modern man is habitant of the wasteland, that is, although scientifically and materialistically developed, morally and spiritually developed, though we have accumulated lot of wealth. I am talking about the modern man, Ghosh and Diksha. Though we have accumulated lot of wealth, amassed lot of money, we are living a luxurious life, but we are morally and spiritually dead inside. Eliot's use of symbolic and allusive techniques has helped him in analyzing the prevailing societal condition by taking incidents and their consequences from past. His allusions is the first four part of poem are mostly about human religious, moral and sexual degeneration, while in the last part the references are to guide man for attaining his deliverance. So people who have lost that moral degradation, sexually degraded, how can they come out of this kind of life? That is by referring to the Indian mythology, the Sanskrit word datta, dayadvam and dhamyata. Thus, according to Eliot, if human beings act upon the guidance by the message of thunder, that is to give, to sympathize and to control, they can achieve a relief from distress and degeneration of the barren, hollow, moral and spiritual situation. Goji, I am audible?
Audible, sir.
Alright. Now, let me just explain the way I understood the poem. As I told you in the beginning that this poem is not so difficult for me. Did I tell you?
Right, sir, you told.
So, Diksha, I am audible?
Yes, sir.
The poem talks about two things, Diksha, Goji. One, the present modern man and woman life. Why they have been degraded, why they are sexually degraded, why they morally degraded, why they had fallen to such a life. They are disillusioned. The woman, the male, the female characters you see in this poem are actually representing the present day modern man and modern woman. Okay, for them there is nothing wrong. They are living their life. They have no spiritual attitude. They don't have any kind of inclination towards God. So when we are disconnected from the spirituality, when we are disconnected from the God, these things happens in our life. Now, what is the solution given by the T.S. Eliot to these people who wanted to come out of this life and who wanted to have salvation? What is the word I am using, Goji?
Salvation.
Salvation. This spiritual longing, this, if they want to attain salvation, to come out of the circle of birth and death and rebirth, they have to look back into the Vedas or Upanishads, which is taken into the poem. And how can we come out of this circle of life, which is starting death, rebirth and again death, is by following three things. What are the first one? Datta. That means we have to give our lives to the benefit of the society, benefit of the human mankind, and we should develop Dayadvam. Dayadvam means to sympathize. And third one is we should develop Damyata. That means to control our sexual desires, to control our moral degradation. So in this course or in this path or through this, we can achieve salvation. So according to T.S. Eliot, when the people have lost the spirituality, when they have lost the faith in God, when they have lost the fear about the God, these entire things, moral, sexual degradation happen. All the characters who were seen in this first, second, third, fourth part of the poem, they were doing all those things because they are not spiritually connected or emotionally connected. They have lost fear of God and faith in God. That was the reason why this London has turned into a wasteland, and why the men and women who are living in the wasteland are considered to be wastelanders. The poem is complicated. The reason is it is not able to understand the mood of the poem, mind of the writer, because it is very difficult for us to accept that these things are happening in the present modern world. But is poet right or wrong, Goji?
Sorry, sir?
Is poet right or wrong? Are these kind of people are living in this world or not?
Really, sir. These are living in such a world, and T.S. Eliot is quite correct, sir, in his approach.
And the last one is, we may be also having such kind of feelings, we may be also such kind of actions we might have committed. So that's why whenever we read this poem, whenever somebody explains this poem, it is hurting for our ego, hurting for our conscious brain, that how can we have been projected in such a manner in this poem, because we believe that whatever is right to us, we are following that one. Majority decides what is right and what is wrong, and that is the reason why we have become hollow and we have become depressed and we are having all these kind of psychological problems. So for these problems, the solution given by the poet in the Wasteland is we should develop or we should follow Datta, Dayadvam and Damyata. And this poem ends with Shanti, 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 which is taken from the Briharindika Upanishad from Indian mythology.
Sir, it's an excellent poem.
Yes. But did you understand or not, at least now?
I can understand, but I have not gone through the whole text actually. The summary somehow you have told, and the 5 parts, the major summary that you have told, that I can understand, but still I have to go through the poem. But it is not possible to go through the line by line explanation and details. But somehow you have to go through the summary and the examination point of view, the information that you told, sir.
Right. Why your professor might have told you this is a very difficult poem, why it is being told to so many teachers, so many professors, to so many students is, it is the mind of the modern person. If you can decode the mind of the modern men and women, it is dead easy to understand this poem. They are nothing from other world. They are from our world. They are from our generation. They may be you and me also in this poem. Okay. So there was no remorse. There was no kind of guilt when they have a multiple partners, and sex was considered to be very simple, like as usual, like drinking or having a cup of coffee. They don't have any kind of emotional attachment. They don't feel any kind of sin being committed when they have a sex with multiple partners. And they are emotionally detached. Emotionally detached. For us, what we were told in the previous generation, we should have a single partner, and it is a kind of a holy act. It is we need to do that one only to propagate the human species, and that to be done on the sacred time, holy time. They will fix all those things. That time only we have to copulate. All those things were told. Now they can see these people are enjoying their life with any kind of guilt. In this modern world, the place in which we are living, the world in which we are living, we can see the thousands or millions of men and women who are not having any kind of guilt of having this kind of multiple affairs. So the most important point of this poem is sexual degradation is a moral degradation. Why it is associated? Because if we have no control about our sexual fantasies of sexual things, then that will lead to the moral degradation. Now everything falls into the same one. People who can control their sexual desires, they can control their life. People who can have a control over their sexual fantasies and desires, and if they can have a complete control about those things, then they can live a life worth living, and that can come only through the spiritual attitude or with the fear of God. So that is missing in this modern world. That's why the people who are in this world, they are living such kind of a degraded life. So everything is connected to the sexual degeneration.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Santi, Santi, Santi. The 3 words.
Shanti. That is the way the poem ends. Now, what I am trying to tell before I close the class for the Ashwatthapa sir, whether you understood the summary of the poem is not, that is personal to you. That is for knowledge. That is for information. But whatever is being shown to you in this first slide, that is examination point of view very important.
Yes, sir. I see. Means so many information, important questions are there, important information are there from examination point of view. Yes, sir.
So what I am trying to say to conclude this class is, this poem is the original reflection of you and me who are living in this modern world. This poem will make us to stand naked in front of us, and it is very difficult to accept that real truth, right? So that is the reason why
yes, sir.
I have to control a lot of words to use vocabulary in this classroom so that it will be
Yes, sir.
when people watch, they should not find this is completely obscene and vulgarity and sexual class. But it is the thing. It is the thing. If you see the woman,
No, the real thing that must be exposed. The real thing that must be exposed. Yes.
So again, before end the class, whether you remember the summary, all those things, remember the examination point of view, the information, and then that will help you to clear the exams. And if you are really interested to know about the summary, theory, all those things, then there are so many people who are living in this world as a Westlanders. If you observe those people, you can understand this poem very well. I told you with confidence in the beginning that I can explain this poem better than anybody. The reason is, I understood the mind of the poet and I observed the people in this world who are exactly the Westlanders. I was surrounded by so many people like this in my real life. Okay.
Right, sir. Right. Exactly right, sir.
Right. So we'll close this class and then Ashwatthapa sir is waiting. We'll start the class. Just give me 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. One question, sir. I'm asking, means do I need to go through the lines, each and every lines, or the things that you have, means from examination point of view, sir?
In this poem, there are 3 lines which are important: starting line, ending line, datta, dayadvam, and damyata.
Okay, sir.
Okay, these 3 are important, and remaining once you go through the entire poem, so that you will feel confident that you have read the poem.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay, so we'll close the class. Ashwatthapa sir is waiting. We'll close the class.
Yes, sir.
Right.